Are you still awake? The night is deep now, the kind of quiet where even the stars seem to hush their light. Perhaps you, like me, feel the pull of a story that lingers in the shadows of history waiting to be told. Tonight I'll take you to a cold Christmas morning in 1066 to the stone heart of Westminster Abbey, where a boy king stood on the edge of a throne too vast for his trembling hands. Don't drift away too soon. Some stories are so fragile, so woven into the fabric of time, that if you close your eyes too early, they might slip away forever. Now turn out the lights, lie down, let the weight of the day fall away, and let me send you drifting into a dream of a history that still whispers its secrets. You stand in the mist, your breath curling like a ghost in the chill of a December dawn. The year is 1066, and the air smells of damp wool and the faint acrid tang of wood smoke from hearths long extinguished. Your feet wrapped in rough leather sink slightly into the muddy path leading to Westminster Abbey. You're a Saxon villager, one of many drawn to this place by rumors of a new king. The Normans, those sharp-eyed foreigners with their clinking mail and strange tongues, have swept through your world like a storm. Hastings, they say, was where your old King Harold fell, his body pierced by arrows. Now a boy named William, barely past 20, is to be crowned. You clutch a turnip from your garden, a humble offering, though you're not sure why you brought it. Perhaps it's all you have left. The abbey looms ahead, its stone walls gray and heavy under a sky that refuses to brighten. The crowd around you shuffles a sea of cloaks and hoods, their murmurs soft as the rustle of dry leaves. You hear the clank of a Norman guard's sword against his armor, a sound that makes your stomach tighten. The air inside the abbey is colder still, smelling of wax and ancient dust. Candles flicker on the altar, their light dancing on the faces of stern-faced priests and lords. You press forward, your shoulder brushing against a woman who smells of onions and grief. She whispers to her neighbor, "Will this king bring peace or more blood?" You don't answer. You're not sure you know. In the center of the abbey, William stands, his face pale under a mop of dark hair. He's younger than you expected, his hands twitching at his sides as if the weight of the crown they're about to place on him is already pressing down. The Archbishop of Canterbury, a man with a beard like tangled wool, raises his voice in Latin, the words rolling over you like a river you can't quite cross. The crowd shifts, and you catch a glimpse of William's eyes, wide, uncertain, darting to the lords around him. You wonder if he's as frightened as you are. A priest nearby trips over his robe, muttering a curse before catching himself, and you stifle a smile. Even holy men, it seems, can stumble in the presence of kings. Then it happens. The crowd is asked to acclaim their new king, a shout of loyalty to bind them to this Norman stranger. You open your mouth, but the sound that rises is a chaotic roar, a jumble of Saxon and Norman voices clashing like swords. The guards outside, hearing the noise, panic. They think it's rebellion. You smell smoke before you see it, torches flung into nearby houses by nervous soldiers, the crackle of fire mingling with shouts. No rebellion, a man near you cries, his voice hoarse. We're only shouting for the king. But the guards don't understand your tongue. You clutch your turnip tighter, as if it could shield you from the chaos. A woman beside you, her face lined with years of toil, nudges you. "Give it to the guard," she says, nodding at your turnip. "Might calm him down." You hesitate, then step forward, holding out the vegetable to a grim-faced Norman. He stares bewildered, then takes it, his gauntlet brushing your hand. "What's this for?" he grumbles in broken Saxon. You shrug, and he tucks the turnip into his belt, muttering about mad English folk. The crowd chuckles, a brief ripple of warmth in the cold. You feel lighter, as if you've given away more than just a root. The ceremony continues, the priests chanting the crown settling on William's head. Its two big slipping slightly, and you catch a lord hiding a smirk. The boy king stands taller, though his shoulders squaring as if to bear the weight of England itself. You wonder what it means, this moment, for your village, your fields, your children. The fire outside is doused, the smoke fading into the mist, but the tension lingers. You hear a soft clink as a coin falls from a lord's pouch rolling across the stone floor. No one picks it up. It feels like an omen, though, of what you can't say. Historians centuries later still argue over that chaotic shout. Was it rebellion, a spark of Saxon defiance against the Norman yoke? Or was it simply a misunderstanding, voices raised in loyalty but heard as threat? Some point to chronicles like the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, which hints at unrest, while others, reading Norman accounts, insist the crowd meant no harm. The truth, like the mist outside the abbey, is hard to grasp. You standing there don't know what to believe. You only know the cold, the smoke, the weight of a new world pressing down. As you leave the abbey, the crowd thins, and you hear a monk muttering about the wrong date for the coronation. Christmas, he says, was a bold choice, but the calendar might be off. You smile, thinking you'll remember that monk with his fussy ways and his wrong calendar as you walk back to your village. The path is slick with mud, the air heavy with the promise of snow. You glance back at the abbey, its silhouette fading into the fog. The throne is filled, but for how long? You pull your cloak tighter, the turnip gone, your hands empty, but your heart full of questions. The night deepens as you walk the stars above, hidden by clouds. You hear the distant bleat of a sheep, the soft crunch of frost underfoot. The world feels vast, uncertain, but there's a strange comfort in it. You're just a villager, your life small against the sweep of kings and crowns. Yet you were there in that abbey when a boy became a king. You gave a turnip to a guard, a tiny act in a day of fire and noise. And as you drift toward sleep, the memory of that moment wraps around you like a blanket, soft and warm. The throne will change hands again, you know. But for now, you walk home, the cold fading, the story settling into your bones. The night is soft around you, a velvet cloak of quiet that holds you close. Your eyelids are heavy, but the whispers of history still call, pulling you back to a time when the English throne was a restless, hungry thing. You're no longer in the misty chill of Westminster Abbey, where you stood watching a boy king crowned amidst shouts and smoke. Now the year is 1100, and you're deep in the New Forest, where the trees stand tall and silent, their branches heavy with secrets. The air is warm, heavy with the scent of pine and earth, and you're a forester, your hands rough from years of tending this wild place. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when a king's hunt ended in blood and a throne teetered on the edge of a single arrow. Lie back, let the world fade, and drift with me into this dream of a history that still rustles like leaves in the wind. You walk through the New Forest, your boots sinking into the soft loam, the crunch of leaves a steady rhythm beneath your steps. It's August, and the sun filters through the canopy, casting dappled gold on the fern-covered ground. The air smells of moss and the faint, sweet rot of fallen apples. You carry a staff, its wood worn smooth by your calloused hands, and you're here to check the traps you've set for rabbits. But today the forest hums with something else. Hooves thudding in the distance, the sharp bark of hunting dogs, the laughter of men who wear wealth like a second skin. King William II, the Red King they call him, is hunting with his court. You've seen him before, his ruddy face and sharp eyes, always restless, always watching. The throne he sits on, the one you saw his brother William claim in that smoky abbey, feels like a borrowed thing, uneasy under his weight. You pause by a gnarled oak, its bark rough under your fingers, and listen. The hunt is close now, the air thick with the scent of horse sweat and leather. A dog bounds past, its tongue lolling, and you smile as it snatches a crust of bread from your satchel, bolting off before you can scold it. Thieving mutt, you mutter, shaking your head, but the forest seems to chuckle with you, its leaves rustling in a sudden breeze. You move on, following a deer path, the ground soft and cool beneath your feet. The king's party is ahead, their voices carrying noble voices, loud with wine and bravado. You don't belong among them, but curiosity pulls you closer like a moth to a candle's flicker. Through the trees you see them, William II, his red beard catching the light, and his men, their bows, drawn eyes fixed on a stag that darts through the underbrush. The king's laughter is sharp, cutting through the forest's hum, and you wonder if he feels the throne's shadow even here in this wild place. You kneel behind a thorn bush, its prickles brushing your sleeve, and watch. The king nocks an arrow, his movements swift, almost careless. You hear the twang of the bowstring, but it's not his. Another arrow flies from somewhere to your left, and the king stumbles, clutching his chest. A cry goes up sharp and raw, and the metallic scent of blood mingles with the earth's musk. You freeze your breath, catching the forest suddenly too quiet. The men scatter, some shouting, others staring at the king's body crumpled against a tree. A noble, his face pale as milk, drops his bow and stammers, "It was an accident." You don't move, your heart pounding like a drum. The dogs whine, circling, and one of them noses at the king's hand as if waiting for a command that will never come. You notice a young squire, barely older than your son, trip over a root in his panic, his helmet clattering to the ground. The sight is so absurd you almost laugh, but the weight of the moment stifles it. Was it an accident, that arrow, or something darker, a blade hidden in the forest's green heart? You edge closer, your staff forgotten, the leaves underfoot muffling your steps. The king's eyes are open, staring at the sky, and you feel a chill despite the summer warmth. A man, Walter Tyrrell, you hear someone whisper, stands frozen, his bow still in hand. "I didn't mean—" He starts, but his voice trails off. The others are already moving, talking of fetching the king's brother Henry, who's somewhere nearby. You step back, your cloak catching on the thorns, and you tug it free. The rip a small, sharp sound in the silence. A crow caws overhead, and you wonder if it's the same bird that watched you leave that abbey years ago when a boy was crowned and a turnip changed hands. Historians long after your time still puzzle over this moment. Was it a hunting mishap, as some chronicles claim, or a calculated murder? The Anglo-Saxon chronicle calls it an accident, but whispers in later accounts point to Tyrrell, or even Henry, who seized the throne with unseemly haste. No one saw the arrow's path clearly, and the forest kept its secrets. You crouching in the shadows don't know the truth. You only know the king is dead, his blood soaking into the earth, and the throne is empty again. You think of that monk from the abbey, the one with the wrong calendar, fussing over dates. If he were here, he'd probably say the stars weren't aligned for this hunt. You smile faintly at the thought, though the forest feels heavier now, its air thick with unanswered questions. You turn away, your steps slow, the forest closing around you like a curtain. The nobles are gone, their horses thundering toward London, and you're left with the trees and the fading light. You find your trap empty except for a single leaf caught in the snare, and you laugh softly. Nature's little jest, as if the forest itself is mocking your efforts. The smell of pine is stronger now, mingling with the faint tang of blood that lingers in your memory. You shoulder your satchel, the stolen bread long gone, and start the long walk home. The throne will have a new king soon, you know, Henry perhaps, or someone else. But for now the forest is quiet save for the rustle of leaves and the distant howl of a dog. As you walk, the stars begin to prick the sky, their light cold and distant. You feel the weight of the day settling into your bones, the image of the king's fall replaying in your mind. You're just a forester, your life woven into the roots of this land, but you've seen a king die, a throne shift in a single moment. The memory wraps around you soft as the moss underfoot, heavy as the crown that no one wears tonight. You think of the turnip you gave that guard years ago and wonder if small acts ripple through time like an arrow through the air. Sleep tugs at you now, the forest fading into a dream. The throne waits restless, but for now you walk on the night gentle around you. The night wraps you in its quiet embrace, a stillness that feels like the pause between heartbeats. Your breath slows, but the whispers of history still linger, pulling you deeper into a time when the English throne was a splintered thing fought over by those who claimed it as their own. You're no longer in the New Forest where you watched a king fall to an arrow's kiss, nor in the smoky haze of Westminster Abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 11:35. And you're in a small village, its thatched roofs sagging under the weight of winter. You're a farmer, your hands cracked from years of turning soil, your heart heavy with the rumors of war. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when England tore itself apart, when the throne was a prize no one could hold for long. Lie back, let the world soften, and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of ash and hope. You huddle in your hut, the straw roof above you creaking as the wind howls outside. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and the faint bitter tang of burning fields in the distance. It's winter, and the cold seeps through the walls, nipping at your fingers as you mend a torn sack by the fire's glow. The flames cast shadows that dance like ghosts on the mud-plastered walls, and you hear the soft crackle of logs, a small comfort in a world gone mad. They call it the anarchy, this war between Stephen, who sits on the throne, and Matilda, who claims it as her birthright. You've heard the tales. Stephen crowned in haste after King Henry's death, Matilda's banners rising across the land. Your village, tucked between hills, is caught in the middle, its fields trampled by armies who care little for your crops. Outside the night is dark, the stars hidden by clouds heavy with snow. You step to the door, your boots scuffing the packed earth, and peer into the gloom. The village is quiet, too quiet, save for the distant lowing of a cow that refuses to sleep. You smile faintly, remembering how that same cow wandered into a knight's camp last week, munching on their banner before anyone noticed. The knights, red-faced and shouting, chased her back to your field, and your neighbors still chuckle about it over their ale. You pull your cloak tighter, the wool rough against your neck, and listen. Hooves thud in the distance, a reminder that safety is a fleeting thing. You've seen the soldiers, Stephen's men, Matilda's men, it hardly matters. They take your grain, your chickens, and leave only promises of peace that never come. You return to the fire, the warmth, a faint shield against the cold. Your daughter, barely 10, sleeps on a pallet nearby, clutching a wooden horse you carved last spring. It's chipped now, one leg broken, left in the mud after a soldier's horse trampled it. You found it there, half buried, and brought it back to her, though she cried for days. The memory stings sharper than the wind. You sit, the sack forgotten, and think of the throne, that distant seat that seems to curse everyone who touches it. You remember the boy King William crowned in that abbey so long ago, the turnip you gave to a guard. You think of the Red King fallen in the forest, an arrow in his heart. And now Stephen and Matilda tearing England apart for the same prize. The throne feels like a fire that burns all who come near. A knock at the door startles you, a soft rap like a bird's peck. You open it, and there's old Edith, the village weaver, her face lined like a map of sorrow. "They're coming again," she whispers, her breath clouding in the cold. "Heard it from the miller. Soldiers burning fields to starve us out." You nod, your throat tight, and offer her a seat by the fire. She sits, her hands trembling as she warms them, and you notice her shawl is frayed, a thread dangling like a spider's web. "They say Matilda's the rightful queen," she murmurs, "but Stephen's got the crown. What's it matter to us?" You don't answer, but you pour her a cup of thin broth, the steam rising like a prayer. She sips, then laughs a dry sound. "Bet the king's eating better than this." You chuckle, though it's hollow. Even in war, there's room for small jests. The fire pops, sending a spark onto the floor, and you stamp it out, the smell of singed straw sharp in your nose. You think of the monk from that abbey, the one with the wrong calendar fussing over dates. If he were here, he'd probably say this war was written in the stars or some such nonsense. You smile, but it fades as you hear shouts outside, distant but growing closer. You step to the door again, your heart thudding, and see torchlight flickering through the trees. The soldiers are near their armor, clinking like coins in a pouch. You close the door, barring it with a beam that feels too frail. Your daughter stirs, murmuring in her sleep, and you whisper to her, "It's just the wind." But you know it's not. Historians centuries later still argue over this war, this anarchy that scarred England. Was Matilda the true heir, robbed by Stephen's swift coronation, or was Stephen the better choice, a man who could hold the throne in a time of chaos? The chronicles like Orderic Vitalis praise Stephen's charm but question his strength, while others argue Matilda's claim was undeniable, her father's will clear. You, warming your hands by a dying fire, don't know the politics of courts. You know only the smoke on the horizon, the hunger in your belly, the fear that your daughter's wooden horse is all she'll have left. The throne is a distant thing, but its shadow falls heavy on your village. You sit again, the fire's glow fading, the hut growing colder. Edith hums a tune, an old song about a king who shared his bread, and you wonder if such a king ever existed. The thought makes you laugh softly. Imagine a king sharing anything but orders. Outside, the shouts fade, the soldiers moving on, and you breathe easier, though the tension lingers like the smell of smoke. You tuck a blanket around your daughter, her face peaceful despite the world's unrest. The throne will change hands again, you know. Stephen, Matilda, someone else, it's all the same to you. You're just a farmer, your life tied to the soil, but you've seen the cost of that distant seat. As you lie down, the straw beneath you rustles, a sound as familiar as your own heartbeat. The night is quiet now, save for the cow's distant lowing, and you think of that foolish beast eating a knight's banner. The memory warms you, a small spark in the dark. You close your eyes, the fire's last embers glowing like stars. The throne is a battleground, but here in your hut there's only the soft creak of the roof, the scent of earth, the weight of a day survived. Sleep pulls at you gentle as a tide, and you drift, the story of kings and wars fading into a dream. The throne waits, but for now you rest wrapped in the quiet of a village that holds its breath. The night cradles you gently, its silence a soft hand guiding you toward sleep. Your breath is slow, but the echoes of history still murmur, drawing you back to a time when the English throne stood empty, its king far away, and whispers of betrayal hung heavy in the air. You're no longer in the village hut, warmed by a dying fire amidst the anarchy's chaos, nor in the forest where a king fell, nor the abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 1190, and you walk the dusty streets of London, the city's pulse quick and nervous. You're a merchant, your hands stained with ink from tallying accounts, your heart heavy with the weight of a kingdom left to fend for itself. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when Richard the Lionheart chased glory across the sea, and his brother John cast a long shadow over the throne. Lie back. Let the world blur and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of ale and ambition. You stand in your shop, the air thick with the tang of ale from a nearby tavern, and the musty scent of wool stacked high on wooden shelves. The street outside hums with life cartwheels, creek hawkers shout, and the clink of coins is a constant song. It's summer, and the sun beats down, warming the cobblestones until they radiate heat through your worn leather shoes. You wipe sweat from your brow, your fingers brushing the rough linen of your tunic, and glance at the ledger open before you. Trade is slow, the city restless. King Richard the Lionheart is gone off to the Holy Land with his crusade, leaving England to his brother John. You've heard the tales, Richard's golden hair, his sword flashing in battle, his courage a beacon. But here in London the throne feels like an empty chair, and John's name is spoken in whispers sharp as the edge of a knife. You step outside the dust swirling around your ankles and squint against the glare. The street is crowded, merchants and apprentices jostling their voices, a low buzz. A beggar sits by the tavern door singing a drunken song about Richard's return, his words slurred but hopeful. He'll come back with gold and glory, he croons, and you smile, though you wonder if he believes it. The man's hat patched and crooked tips over his eyes, and you toss him a penny, chuckling as he fumbles to catch it. The coin rolls into the dirt, and he laughs, calling it the king's lost ransom. You shake your head amused and move on, the scent of fresh bread from a baker's stall pulling you forward. The talk in the city is all of John, his sharp eyes, his quick temper, his hunger for power. You've seen him once riding through London, his cloak finer than anything in your shop, his guards pushing back the crowd. You wonder if he sits on the throne in Richard's absence, or if he merely circles it like a wolf sniffing at a fire. You pass a group of merchants, their voices low, their hands gesturing wildly. John's taxing us to death, one grumbles, his beard flecked with ale foam. For what to fund his brother's wars? You don't join the talk, but you listen, your fingers tracing the smooth edge of a copper coin in your pocket. The throne, you think, is a restless thing, always pulling men into its orbit. You pause by the river, the Thames glinting under the sun, its surface rippling like molten silver. The air smells of fish and damp wood, and you hear the soft slap of water against the docks. A boy runs past, chasing a stray dog, and you laugh as the dog steals a fish from a cart, its tail wagging like a banner. The fishmonger shouts, but the boy only grins, and you feel a flicker of warmth in the city's tension. You think of the village you heard of, caught in the anarchy's grip, its fields burned for a throne no one could hold. You think of the forester watching a king die in the forest, an arrow finding its mark. And you think of that abbey years ago where you gave a turnip to a guard, a small act in a day of chaos. The throne binds these moments, you realize, a thread through time. A shout pulls you from your thoughts. A cart is overturned, spilling apples across the street, and you help the driver right it, the fruit's sweet scent mingling with the dust. Clumsy as a king's brother, the driver mutters, and you chuckle, thinking of John's rumored schemes. The city hums with such talk, John plotting with barons, raising money, building alliances. Is he guarding the throne for Richard or carving a path to it? You don't know, but the question hangs heavy like the heat pressing down on London. You return to your shop, the ledger waiting, its pages filled with numbers that tell of a kingdom stretched thin. A customer enters, a woman with a basket of herbs, and she speaks softly. They say Richard's captured, held for ransom. What'll John do now? You shrug, offering her a bolt of cloth, the weave soft under your fingers. Rule, I suppose you say, and she nods, her eyes distant. Historians centuries later still debate John's heart in these years. Was he a loyal steward managing a kingdom while Richard fought in the crusade? Or was he a schemer sowing discord to seize the crown? Chronicles, like those of Roger of Howden, praise John's cunning but hint at ambition, while others argue he was merely pragmatic, holding England together. You, standing in your shop smelling of wool and ink, don't know the truth. You know only the city's unease, the weight of a throne left empty too long. You think of that monk from the abbey, the one with the wrong calendar, fussing over dates. If he were here, he'd probably say the stars foretold Richard's absence or John's rise. You smile at the thought, the idea as comforting as it is absurd. The day fades, the sun sinking behind London's rooftops, casting long shadows across the street. You close your shop, the wooden shutters creaking, and step into the evening. The air is cooler now, carrying the scent of river mud and distant fires. The beggar's song has stopped, his hat empty, save for your penny. You walk home, your steps slow, the city settling into a restless quiet. The throne waits, you know, for Richard's return or John's grasp. You're just a merchant, your life woven into the city's pulse, but you've felt the throne's shadow, its pull on men's hearts. The memory of the day wraps around you, soft as the cloth you sell, heavy as the crown no one wears tonight. As you lie down, the straw mattress rustles beneath you, a sound as familiar as the river's flow. The night is gentle, the city's hum fading into a dream. You think of the dog stealing the fish, the beggar's crooked hat, small moments in a world of kings and crusades. Sleep tugs at you warm and slow, and you drift the throne's story, fading into the dark. The Lionheart is far away, but here in London life goes on, one coin, one day at a time. The throne waits restless, but for now you rest wrapped in the quiet of a city that holds its breath. The night is a soft whisper wrapping you in its gentle hush, urging your eyes to close. Your breath slows, but the threads of history still tug at you, pulling you back to a time when the English throne was a storm of ink and oaths. You're no longer in the dusty streets of London, where whispers of John's schemes filled the air, nor in the village caught in the anarchy's grip, nor the forest where a king fell, nor the abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 12:15, and you stand on the damp grass of Runnymede, the Thames, flowing nearby like a quiet promise. You're a scribe's apprentice, your fingers stained with ink, your shoulders aching from hours bent over parchment. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when barons and a king bartered for power with words, and the throne trembled under the weight of a single document. Lie back, let the world slip away, and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of river mud and rebellion. You stand on the meadow's edge, the grass slick beneath your worn shoes, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and wildflowers crushed underfoot. It's June, and the sun hangs low, casting a golden haze over the tents and banners that dot Runnymede. The river murmurs nearby its waters, catching the light like polished silver, and you hear the soft splash of a fish breaking the surface. Your master, a scribe with a beard like tangled straw, is hunched over a table under a canvas awning, his quill scratching parchment with a sound as steady as your heartbeat. You carry a pot of ink, its weight familiar in your hands, and you're here to witness the sealing of the Magna Carta, a charter the barons have forced upon King John. The throne, that restless seat you've heard of since childhood, feels closer now, its shadow falling across this field. The crowd is a mix of armored barons, their cloaks heavy with dust, and priests muttering prayers, their robes flapping in the breeze. You smell the sweat of horses, the leather of saddles, and the faint sharp tang of wax ready to seal the king's promise. John himself stands near the table, his face tight, his eyes darting like a cornered fox. You've heard the stories, his schemes while Richard was away, his taxes that bled the land dry. Now the barons have had enough, their voices loud with demands for justice. You shift the ink pot, your fingers cold despite the summer warmth, and watch as a baron, his beard braided with silver, trips on his cloak and nearly falls into the mud. The crowd stifles laughter and you smile, thinking even great men can stumble when the throne is at stake. You step closer, the grass brushing your ankles, and hear the quill's scratch pause as your master dips it in the ink you carry. "Careful, lad," he mutters, his voice rough as the parchment. "Spill that and we'll be rewriting history." You nod, clutching the pot tighter, and catch a glimpse of the charter words, like liberty and justice scrawled in black. You wonder what they mean for someone like you, whose life is ink and parchment, not land or power. A breeze carries the scent of the river, cool and clean, and you hear a distant dog barking, perhaps chasing a rabbit through the reeds. You think of the dog in London stealing a fish, and the cow in that village munching a knight's banner. Small moments, you realize, weave through the throne's grand tale. John signs his hand steady, but his jaw tight, and the barons murmur approval, their voices like the rustle of leaves. You notice a child barely older than your sister weaving through the crowd, offering apples from a basket. One rolls from her grasp, bouncing into the mud, and a baron picks it up, tossing it back with a grin. "A king's ransom in fruit," he jests, and the child giggles, her laughter a bright note in the tension. You smile, but the weight of the moment lingers. The charter is meant to bind the king, to limit his power, but you've heard whispers in the tavern John's promises are as fragile as the wax that seals them. You think of the forester watching a king die in the forest, an arrow finding its mark. You think of the farmer hiding from the anarchy's flames. And you think of the abbey where you gave a turnip to a guard, a boy king crowned in chaos. The ceremony ends, the crowd thinning as the sun dips lower, painting the sky with streaks of pink and gold. You help your master pack the quills, the parchment, the wax, your hands moving slowly, the ink staining your fingers like a map of this day. A priest nearby drops his prayer book, muttering as he retrieves it from the grass, and you chuckle softly, thinking of that monk from the abbey, the one with the wrong calendar. If he were here, he'd probably fuss over the date of this signing, insisting the stars weren't aligned for such a pact. The thought warms you, a small spark in the evening's cool air. You glance at the river, its surface now dark, reflecting the first stars. The throne feels distant, yet its pull is everywhere, in the baron's stern faces, in John's tight smile, in the words you've helped write. Historians long after your time still debate John's heart in this moment. Did he sign the Magna Carta in good faith, intending to honor its promises of justice and restraint? Or was it a ploy, a delay to quiet the barons while he plotted to reclaim his power? Chronicles like those of Matthew Paris suggest John's resentment, his quick moves to annul the charter, while others argue he had no choice, cornered by rebellion. You, standing in the fading light, don't know the truth. You know only the scratch of the quill, the weight of the ink pot, the hope that these words might mean something for your children. The throne is a fire burning those who touch it, and you're just an apprentice, your life small against its flames. You walk back to the cart, the grass damp underfoot, the air now cool and sharp with the scent of night-blooming flowers. Your master grumbles about his aching back, and you smile, offering to carry the table. "You're too young to know pain," he says, but his eyes are kind. You think of the child with the apples, the baron's jest, and the throne that looms over this day. The charter is sealed, but for how long? You're just a scribe's apprentice, your world one of ink and parchment. But you've seen the king bend, if only for a moment. The memory wraps around you, soft as the river's murmur, heavy as the crown no one trusts. As you lie down tonight, the straw beneath you rustles a sound as familiar as the Thames flow. The night is quiet save for the distant bark of a dog, and you think of the apple rolling into the mud, the priest's dropped book. Small moments in a world of kings and charters. Sleep pulls at you gentle as the river's current, and you drift the throne's story, fading into a dream. The Magna Carta is written, but its promises are fragile, like ink drying in the sun. The throne waits restless, but for now you rest wrapped in the quiet of a meadow that holds its breath. The night folds around you like a worn cloak, its silence a gentle nudge toward sleep. Your breath is a soft rhythm, but the whispers of history still linger, pulling you back to a time when the English throne stood empty, waiting for a king who was half a world away. You're no longer on the damp grass of Runnymede, where ink and oaths bound a king, nor in the restless streets of London, nor the village scorched by war, nor the forest where an arrow struck, nor the abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 1272, and you kneel in a quiet chapel in London, the air thick with the scent of wax and prayer. You're a priest, your hands worn from turning the pages of holy books, your heart heavy with the weight of a kingdom in waiting. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when Edward VI's name was spoken in whispers, his throne claimed in absence, and England held its breath. Lie back. Let the world soften and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of candlelight and uncertainty. You kneel before the altar, the stone floor cold beneath your knees, its chill seeping through your robes. The chapel is small, its walls darkened by years of smoke from flickering candles, their light casting shadows that dance like ghosts. The air smells of melted wax and the faint musty tang of old parchment, the kind you use for copying scriptures. It's November, and outside the wind rattles the leaded windows, a low moan that feels like the voice of the city itself. King Henry III is dead, his long reign ended, and his son Edward is far away crusading in the Holy Land. You've heard the tales, Edward's tall frame, his fierce eyes, his vow to reclaim Jerusalem. But here in this chapel the throne feels like an empty pew, and you wonder if it will ever be filled. The congregation is sparse, a few merchants and widows huddled in the pews, their cloaks damp from the rain. You hear the creak of wood as they shift, the soft rustle of wool, the occasional cough muffled by a sleeve. You rise, your knees aching, and light another candle, its flame trembling as if unsure of its place. The news came yesterday. Edward is to be king, crowned in his absence, a coronation planned for when he returns. You've prepared a prayer for him written in your careful hand, but as you read it silently, a child in the front pew whispers loudly, "Is it King Edwin now?" You smile, stifling a chuckle, and correct her gently, "Edward, child." The mistake is a small warmth, like the candle's glow, and you think of the monk from that abbey years ago, fussing over his wrong calendar. If he were here, he'd probably insist the coronation date was off by a week. You move to the lectern, your robes brushing the floor, and begin the prayer. The words are heavy, speaking of strength and wisdom for a king who isn't here. You think of the stories you've heard, the boy king crowned in chaos, the turnip you gave to a guard. The red king felled by an arrow, the village burned in the anarchy, the merchant watching John's schemes, the scribe's apprentice at Runnymede, ink staining his fingers. The throne binds them all, a restless seat that seems to curse those who claim it. You pause, your voice catching, and notice a widow dropping her prayer beads, the wooden clatter loud in the quiet. A merchant retrieves them, his grin sheepish as he hands them back, muttering, "God's not as clumsy as us." The congregation chuckles softly, and you feel the tension ease, a moment of lightness in the gloom. Outside, the rain falls harder, its patter a steady rhythm against the windows. You smell the damp stone, the faint sweetness of incense lingering from morning mass. The chapel feels like a sanctuary, but the city beyond is restless whispering of a king who might never return. You've heard rumors Edward wounded in the crusade, a knife in the dark, his life spared by a miracle. You wonder if he knows his father is dead, if he feels the throne's weight across the sea. A young acolyte, barely older than the child who misnamed the king, trips over a candlestick, sending wax dripping onto the floor. "Careful, lad," you say, your voice kind but firm. He blushes and you smile, thinking even holy places are full of small stumbles. You finish the prayer, your voice echoing in the chapel's vaulted ceiling, and the congregation murmurs, "Amen." You step outside, the rain cool on your face, the air sharp with the scent of wet earth and chimney smoke. The street is quiet, save for the splash of puddles underfoot and the distant bark of a dog, perhaps a cousin to the one that stole a fish in London years ago. You think of the cow that ate a knight's banner, the apple rolling in Runnymede mud, and the turnip given in an abbey's chaos. Small acts, you realize, ripple through time like the rain pooling in the cobblestones. The throne waits for Edward, but you wonder if it will change him as it has so many before. Historians centuries later still debate Edward's absence in this moment. Did his time in the Holy Land shape him into the king he'd become, a man of law and war? Or was his absence a vulnerability, leaving England open to unrest? Chronicles like those of the Flores Historiarum praise Edward's eventual return, his strength in uniting the kingdom, but others question whether his delay sowed seeds of doubt. You, standing in the rain, your robes heavy with water, don't know the truth. You know only the chapel's quiet, the weight of a prayer for a king far away, the hope that he'll bring peace to a land weary of strife. The throne is a distant fire, its light faint but unyielding. You return to the chapel, the candles nearly burned out their wax, pooling like tears on the altar. You sit, the pew creaking under you, and trace the grain of the wood with your finger, its texture worn smooth by years of hands. The city sleeps or tries to, and you think of the child's mistake, King Edwin, not Edward. You laugh softly, the sound swallowed by the chapel's stillness. The throne is empty, but not for long. You're just a priest, your life one of prayers and candles, but you've spoken a king's name into the dark, a small act in a world of crowns and crusades. The memory wraps around you warm as the candlelight, heavy as the rain outside. As you lie down tonight, the straw mattress beneath you rustles, a sound as familiar as the chapel's creak. The night is quiet, save for the rain's soft patter, and you think of the acolytes' spilled wax, the widow's dropped beads. Small moments in a world of absent kings. Sleep tugs at you, gentle as a prayer, and you drift the throne's story, fading into a dream. Edward will return, or he won't, but for now the chapel holds you, its silence a balm. The throne waits restless, but you rest wrapped in the quiet of a city that dreams of its king. The night is a soft veil draping you in its quiet, urging your eyes to drift closed. Your breath is slow, a gentle tide, but the echoes of history still call, pulling you back to a time when the English throne was a fire that burned across borders. You're no longer in the candlelit chapel praying for a king far away, nor on the fields of Runnymede, nor in London's dusty streets, nor the village scarred by war, nor the forest where an arrow flew, nor the abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 1307, and you trudge through the snows of northern England, your boots heavy with ice. You're a foot soldier, your hands chapped from gripping a spear, your heart weary from the march toward Scotland. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when Edward Vine, the hammer of the Scots, chased a throne's shadow across a frozen land. Lie back, let the world fade, and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of frost and leather. You march through a world of white, the snow crunching under your boots, each step a jolt through your aching legs. The air is sharp, stinging your face, carrying the scent of damp leather and the faint acrid tang of campfires long smothered. It's winter, and the sky is a heavy gray pressing down on the army like a leaden cloak. King Edward the Tall and Fierce leads this march, his banner snapping in the wind, its colors muted by the frost. You've heard the tales, Edward crowned in absence, now a king who bends nations to his will. They call him Longshanks the Hammer for his campaigns against Scotland, where Robert the Bruce defies him, claiming a crown of his own. The English throne, that restless seat you've known since the tales of your youth, feels colder now, its weight carried on this endless march. Your spear is heavy, its shaft worn smooth by your calloused hands, and you adjust the strap of your pack, the leather biting into your shoulder. The army stretches before you, a line of men bundled in wool, their breath clouding like ghosts. You hear the jangle of armor, the creak of cartwheels, the low curses of men too cold to care for manners. A soldier ahead slips on the ice, his spear clattering, and you stifle a laugh as he scrambles up, muttering about the damnable Scots weather. You think of the cow that ate a knight's banner in that village long ago, the dog stealing a fish in London, the apple rolling in Runnymede mud. Small moments, you realize, cling to you like the snow on your cloak, warming the edges of this bitter march. You pause by a frozen stream, its surface glinting like a shattered mirror. The camp is being set, tents rising like pale mushrooms in the snow. You smell the damp wool of your cloak, the faint smoke of a fire struggling to catch. Edward rides past, his horse's hooves crunching the ice, his face lined but unyielding. You've seen him before from a distance, his eyes sharp as the spear you carry. The throne drives him, you think, to claim Scotland, to hammer its rebels into submission. But you're just a foot soldier, your world one of mud and cold, not crowns. A boy barely old enough to shave offers you a strip of dried meat, his fingers trembling. "Tastes like my shoe," he says, grinning, and you laugh, the sound swallowed by the wind. You take the meat, its salt sharp on your tongue, and nod thanks. Night falls, the sky darkening to a deep bruise, the stars hidden by clouds. You huddle by the fire, its warmth barely reaching your hands, the crackle of burning wood a small comfort. A soldier nearby tells a bad joke about the cold. Why'd the Scot run to warm his bones, and the men chuckle, their faces shadowed. You think of the priest in the chapel praying for Edward's return, the scribe's apprentice at Runnymede, ink on his fingers, the merchant in London tossing a penny to a beggar, the farmer hiding from war, the forester watching a king die, the villager giving a turnip in an abbey's chaos. The throne ties these moments, a thread through time, pulling men like you into its orbit. You wonder if Edward feels its weight marching through this frozen land. A shout breaks the quiet Scots raiders. Someone cries, and you grab your spear, your heart pounding. But it's a false alarm, just a deer crashing through the brush, its eyes wide in the firelight. The men laugh, one calling the deer Bruce's spy, and you relax the spear heavy in your hands. The moment lingers, though a reminder of the war you're part of. You've heard whispers, Edward is ill, his strength fading, yet he marches on driven by the throne's hunger. You think of Scotland's crown claimed by Bruce and wonder if any throne is worth this cold, this blood. The snow falls thicker now, dusting your cloak, and you brush it off, the flakes melting against your skin. Historians, centuries later, still debate Edward's legacy as the Hammer of the Scots. Was he a unifier, forging a stronger England, or a tyrant crushing Scotland's spirit for his own glory? Chronicles like those of Walter of Guisborough praise his resolve, but others, like Scottish accounts, paint him as a relentless foe. You, warming your hands by a dying fire, don't know the truth. You know only the ice in your boots, the weight of your spear, the hope that this march will end. You think of that monk from the abbey fussing over his wrong calendar. If he were here, he'd probably say the stars cursed this campaign or some such folly. You smile the thought, a small light in the dark. The fire fades, its embers glowing like distant stars. You wrap your cloak tighter, the wool stiff with frost, and lie on the hard ground, the snow a cold blanket beneath you. The camp is quiet, save for the wind's low moan and the occasional snort of a horse. You think of the boy's bad joke, the deer mistaken for a raider, and the throne that drives this march. You're just a foot soldier, your life one of steps and spears, but you've seen the king's banner, felt the throne shadow. The memory wraps around you heavy as the snow, soft as the fire's last warmth. Sleep tugs at you gentle as a falling flake, and you drift the throne story fading into a dream. As you close your eyes, the snow's crunch fades, replaced by the rhythm of your breath. The night is vast, the cold a distant thing, and you think of the turnip given in an abbey, the apple in the mud, the prayer in a chapel. Small acts in a world of kings and wars. The throne waits its fire burning across borders, but for now you rest wrapped in the quiet of a camp that dreams of peace. Edward marches on, but you're still the snow falling softly, the world holding its breath. The night is a quiet cradle rocking you gently toward sleep, its silence a balm for your weary mind. Your breath slows, but the whispers of history still tug, pulling you back to a time when the English throne was a shadow cast by betrayal and loss. You're no longer trudging through the snows of Edward's campaign, nor standing on Runnymede grass, nor in London's dusty streets, nor the village burned by war, nor the forest where a king fell, nor the abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 1327, and you stand in the damp gloom of Berkeley Castle, your spear heavy in your hands. You're a guard, your boots worn from pacing stone floors, your heart heavy with the weight of a king who is no longer a king. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when Edward II waited in a cell, his crown gone, his fate a whisper in the dark. Lie back, let the world blur, and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of mold and secrets. You stand at the end of a narrow corridor, the stone walls cold and slick under your fingers, their surface glistening with damp in the torchlight. The air is heavy, smelling of mold and the faint, sour tang of unwashed bodies. It's September, but the castle feels like winter, its chill seeping into your bones through your patched wool tunic. Your spear rests against the wall, its iron tip catching the flicker of the torch, and you shift your weight, the leather of your boots creaking softly. Below, in a cell you've never seen, Edward II waits deposed by his wife Isabella and her ally Mortimer. The throne, that restless seat you've heard of since childhood, is now his son's Edward III, a boy barely older than the one crowned in that abbey long ago. You wonder if this throne curses all who touch it. The castle is quiet, save for the drip of water somewhere in the dark, a steady plink that echoes like a heartbeat. You hear the faint shuffle of another guard's steps, his shadow passing across the wall, and the low hum of a tune he shouldn't be singing on duty. You smile, remembering the soldier's bad joke about the cold in the Scottish snows, the child's apple rolling in Runnymede mud, the dog stealing a fish in London. Small moments you think cling to you like the damp on these stones. You adjust your cloak, its wool heavy with moisture, and try to ignore the rumors that Edward II will not leave this place alive. You've seen him once brought through the courtyard, his face thin, his eyes hollow, no longer the king who danced at feasts. A scuffle breaks the silence, and you turn, gripping your spear. It's only a rat skittering across the floor, its eyes glinting like tiny coins. You laugh softly, your breath clouding in the cold, and mutter, "Even rats think they're kings here." The sound of your voice feels strange, too loud in the stillness. You think of the turnip given to a guard in that abbey, the prayer for a king far away, the ink-stained fingers at Runnymede, the spear in the snows of Scotland. The throne weaves these moments, a thread through time, and you, a guard in a forgotten corridor, are part of its story. You hear a cough from below, faint but unmistakable, and your heart tightens. Is it Edward or just the castle's ghosts? Another guard, Tom, shuffles toward you, his face ruddy from too much ale. "Heard he's to be starved," he whispers, nodding toward the cell. You frown, unsure what to say, and offer him a sip from your water skin. He takes it, spilling a drop on his tunic, and grins. "Clumsy as a deposed king," he says, and you chuckle, though it feels hollow. You want to comfort the man below, to say something kind, but you're just a guard, your words as useless as the spear you carry. You try anyway, calling softly into the dark, "Rest easy, sir." There's no answer, only the drip of water, and you feel foolish, like a child shouting at the wind. The torch flickers, casting shadows that seem to move on their own, and you wonder if Edward heard you or if he's already lost to his fate. The night deepens, the castle's stones growing colder, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and wax. You pace the corridor, your steps a soft thud, and think of the monk from that abbey fussing over his wrong calendar. If he were here, he'd probably say the stars foretold Edward's fall or some such nonsense. You smile, the thought a small warmth against the chill. The throne is Edward III's now, but you've heard whispers Isabella and Mortimer rule in his name, their ambition a shadow over the boy. You wonder if the throne will break him as it broke his father, as it burned so many before. Historians centuries later still argue over Edward II's end. Was he murdered in Berkeley Castle, as some chronicles claim, with tales of a red-hot poker or suffocation? Or did he escape, as others suggest, living out his days in secret? The Lanercost Chronicle hints at a grim death, but later accounts like those of Italian monks speak of a man who might have fled. You, standing in the damp dark, don't know the truth. You know only the cough from below, the weight of your spear, the hope that this night will pass without blood. The throne is a fire consuming those who sit on it, and you're just a guard, your life one of stone and shadows. You lean against the wall, the cold stone pressing through your cloak, and watch the torch burn low, its flame a trembling star. The rat skitters past again, and you laugh softly, thinking it's bolder than most men here. The castle is quiet now, the other guard's tune faded, the drip of water a lullaby. You think of the turnip in the abbey, the apple in the mud, the prayer in the chapel, the spear in the snow. Small acts in a world of crowns and betrayals. The throne waits its shadow long, but you're still your spear heavy, your heart heavier. Sleep tugs at you soft as the torches glow, and you drift the throne's story fading into a dream. As you close your eyes, the castle's chill fades, replaced by the rhythm of your breath. The night is vast, the silence deep, and you think of the rat's bold dash, Tom's spilled water. Small moments in a world of fallen kings. The throne burns on its fire, restless, but for now you rest wrapped in the quiet of a castle that holds its secrets. Edward II waits below, or perhaps he's already gone, but you're still the night, a gentle weight, the world holding its breath. The night is a soft embrace, its quiet wrapping you like a worn blanket, coaxing your eyes to close. Your breath is a gentle rhythm, but the whispers of history still linger, pulling you back to a time when the English throne cast its shadow far beyond its shores. You're no longer in the damp gloom of Berkeley Castle, guarding a fallen king, nor in the snowy marches of Scotland, nor on Runnymede grass, nor in London's dusty streets, nor the village burned by war, nor the forest where an arrow flew, nor the abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 1356, and you stand on a hill in France, the air sharp with the scent of sweat and steel. You're a camp follower, your hands rough from washing linens, your heart heavy with the clamor of war. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when the Black Prince's armor gleamed at the Battle of Poitiers and the throne's fire burned bright across the sea. Lie back, let the world fade, and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of blood and glory. You stand on a grassy hill, the ground soft beneath your patched shoes, the breeze carrying the tang of sweat and the metallic scent of polished steel. It's September and the sun beats down, warming the fields near Poitiers where the English army faces the French. You're here to mend clothes, cook broth, and tend the wounded, following the army of Edward the Black Prince, son of King Edward III. The throne, that restless seat you've heard of since childhood, feels distant, yet its pull is here in the banners snapping above the camp, in the prince's golden armor that catches the light like a star. You clutch a bundle of linens, their fabric rough against your arms, and watch the army form ranks below their spears, glinting their shouts a low roar. The camp is alive with noise, the clank of armor, the whinny of horses, the creak of carts heavy with supplies. You smell the smoke of cook fires, the faint sweetness of crushed grass, and the sourness of men unwashed after days of march. Your hands move, folding a torn tunic, but your eyes are on the prince, his armor so bright it hurts to look at. He's young, fierce, leading men to claim glory for England, for the throne his father holds. You've heard the tales, the boy king crowned in chaos, the turnip given in an abbey, the arrow in the forest, the village burned, the schemes in London, the ink at Runnymede, the prayer in the chapel, the march through snow. The throne weaves these moments, and you, a camp follower, are a thread in its tapestry. A knight's horse tethered nearby snorts and paws the ground, its hoof catching a villager's hat left in the grass. The hat, tattered and sun-bleached, spins into the air, and you laugh as the horse munches it, its jaws working comically. A meal fit for a king's steed, you mutter, and a nearby washerwoman chuckles, her hands red from scrubbing. The moment lightens the air, but the battle looms, its tension thick as the dust rising from the field. You move to the cook fire, stirring a pot of thin broth, the steam warm against your face. A soldier, his face smudged with dirt, grabs a ladle and spills half the broth, grinning sheepishly. Clumsier than a French king, he says, and you smile, though the jest feels fragile against the clash of steel below. The battle begins, a roar of men and metal, and you climb higher on the hill, the grass slippery underfoot. You see the Black Prince, his armor a beacon amidst the chaos, leading a charge that breaks the French lines. The air fills with the screams of horses, the clang of swords, the thud of arrows finding flesh. You smell blood, now sharp and coppery, mingling with the earth's musk. A wounded man stumbles into the camp, his arm gashed, and you bandage it, the linen rough against your fingers. He mumbles thanks, his eyes distant, and you wonder if he sees the throne in this bloodshed or only survival. You think of the guard in Berkeley Castle whispering to a fallen king, the soldier in the snow, the scribe's ink-stained hands. Small acts, you realize, hold fast in a world of war. The battle turns the English, gaining ground, and you hear shouts of victory as the French King John II is captured. The camp buzzes, men cheering, but you stay quiet, your hands busy with bandages. A boy fetching water trips over a tent rope, spilling his bucket, and you laugh softly, helping him up. "You'll drown us all," you say, and he grins, his face flushed. The moment is a spark in the dark, but you feel the throne's weight, its fire driving this victory. The Black Prince will return to England, a hero, his father's crown brighter for it, but you wonder what it costs: the blood, the lives, the hat eaten by a horse. Historians centuries later still debate the Black Prince's triumph at Poitiers. Was it his strategic brilliance outmaneuvering a larger French army, or was luck the true victor, as some chronicles suggest? The Chronicle of Jean Froissart praises the prince's daring, but others argue the French king's errors handed England the day. You, standing on the hill, the wind tugging your hair, don't know the truth. You know only the chaos below the bandage in your hands, the hope that this victory brings peace. You think of that monk from the abbey fussing over his wrong calendar. If he were here, he'd probably say the stars aligned for the prince or some such whimsy. You smiled the thought a small comfort against the battle's din. The sun sets, painting the sky with streaks of crimson, and the camp settles the air heavy with the scent of blood and smoke. You sit by the fire, its crackle a soft lullaby, and mend a torn cloak, the needle a familiar weight. The prince's armor is being polished nearby, its gleam dulled by dust, and you wonder if the throne will change him as it changed so many before. You think of the turnip in the abbey, the apple in the mud, the prayer in the chapel, the spear in the snow, the whisper in the castle. The throne binds these moments, its fire burning across seas and fields. You're just a camp follower, your life one of linens and broth, but you've seen glory's cost, felt its shadow. As you lie down tonight, the grass beneath you is soft, the fire's warmth fading. The night is quiet, save for the distant neigh of a horse, and you think of the hat it ate, the spilled broth, small moments in a world of princes and battles. Sleep pulls at you, gentle as the breeze, and you drift the throne story, fading into a dream. The Black Prince stands tall, but you're still the hill, cradling you, the world holding its breath. The throne burns on its fire, restless, but for now you rest wrapped in the quiet of a camp that dreams of peace. The night is a gentle tide washing over you, with its quiet urging your eyes to drift closed. Your breath is slow, a soft rhythm, but the echoes of history still murmur, pulling you back to a time when the English throne trembled under the weight of a people's anger. You're no longer on the hill at Poitiers watching the Black Prince's armor gleam, nor in the damp cell of Berkeley Castle, nor the snowy marches of Scotland, nor Runnymede grass, nor London's dusty streets, nor the village burned by war, nor the forest where a king fell, nor the abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 1381, and you march toward London, your pitchfork heavy in your hands, the air thick with the scent of sweat and rebellion. You're a farmer, your back bent from years in the fields, your heart aflame with the fire of the peasants' revolt. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when the throne faced the fury of the common folk, led by men like Wat Tyler. Lie back, let the world soften, and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of dust and defiance. You walk along a rutted road, the earth dry beneath your boots, each step kicking up dust that clings to your patched tunic. It's June, and the sun burns high, its heat pressing against your neck, the air heavy with the stink of unwashed bodies and the faint sweet tang of hay left to rot in abandoned fields. You grip your pitchfork, its wooden handle worn smooth by years of toil, and march with a crowd of farmers, laborers, and villagers, their voices a low roar of anger. The poll tax, they say, has broken you, demanded by King Richard II, a boy barely older than the one crowned in that abbey long ago. You've heard the tales: taxes to fund wars, lords who squeeze the land dry, a throne that cares nothing for your hunger. The throne, that restless seat, feels closer now, its shadow fueling your steps toward London. The crowd stretches before you, a river of cloaks and tools, scythes, axes, pitchforks raised like banners. You hear the creak of cartwheels, the thud of boots, the occasional shout of "For liberty." The air smells of dust and the faint musk of horses, though no knights ride with you. You think of the stories that brought you here, the turnip given in an abbey, the arrow in the forest, the village burned in the anarchy, the schemes in London, the ink at Runnymede, the prayer in a chapel, the march through snow, the guard in a castle, the prince's armor at Poitiers. The throne weaves these moments, and you, a farmer, are part of its story, your pitchfork a small defiance against its weight. A man ahead, his beard gray with dust, stumbles, his scythe clattering to the ground. You help him up, and he grins, his teeth crooked. Clumsier than a king's tacksman, he says, and you laugh, the sound swallowed by the crowd's hum. The moment is a spark lightening the weight of your march. You pass a cart where a boy no older than your son waves a tattered cloth, shouting about Wat Tyler, the revolt's leader. The cloth snags on a branch and he tugs it free, his face red with effort. A banner for a new king, he calls, and the crowd chuckles, though you wonder if any king could tame this anger. You adjust your grip on the pitchfork, its weight a reminder of the fields you've left behind, the crops untended, the hunger waiting at home. London looms ahead, its walls dark against the sky, the Thames glinting like a blade. You smell the river now, its muddy tang mixing with the sweat of the crowd. The city gates are open, the guards fled or joined you, and you pour into the streets, the cobblestones hard underfoot. You see smoke rising, buildings burned by the revolt's fire, the air sharp with ash. A woman beside you, her apron stained, points to the tower where Richard hides. He's just a boy, she says, her voice soft but bitter. You nod, thinking of your own children, left with your wife, their faces thin from hunger. You wonder if Richard feels the throne's weight, or if he's too young to know its curse. The crowd surges, and you're carried toward the Savoy Palace, John of Gaunt's grand house, now a target for your anger. You hear glass shatter, the crackle of flames, and see a man toss a noble's hat into the fire, laughing as it curls into ash. Fits the flames better than a lord's head, he jests, and you smile, though the destruction unsettles you. You think of the monk from the abbey fussing over his wrong calendar. If he were here, he'd probably say the stars predicted this revolt or some such folly. The thought is a small comfort, a flicker in the chaos. You clutch your pitchfork, its prongs glinting, and wonder if this march will change the throne or only burn more lives. Historians centuries later still debate Richard II's role in the peasants' revolt. Did he, a boy of 14, skillfully quell the rebellion with promises at Smithfield? Or did his advisers manipulate the crowd, betraying Tyler with a blade? Chronicles like those of Froissart praise Richard's courage, but others argue he was a puppet, his words scripted by fear. You, standing in London smoke, don't know the truth. You know only the weight of your pitchfork, the hunger in your belly, the hope that your children might live free. The throne is a fire burning those who challenge it, and you're just a farmer, your life one of soil and sweat. The day fades, the sun sinking behind London's rooftops, casting long shadows across the streets. You sit by a burned-out cart, the wood still warm, the air heavy with ash and dust. Your hands ache, the pitchfork leaning against your shoulder, and you think of the tattered cloth, the hat in the flames. Small moments in a world of revolt. The throne waits its fire unyielding, but you're wary, your heart heavy with the day's weight. Sleep tugs at you soft as the dust settling around you, and you drift the throne's story fading into a dream. As you lie down tonight, the ground is hard, the air cool against your skin. The night is quiet, save for the distant crackle of a fire, and you think of the turnip in the abbey, the apple in the mud, the prayer in the chapel, the spear in the snow, the whisper in the castle, the horse's stolen hat. Small acts in a world of kings and rebellions. The throne burns on its shadow long, but for now you rest wrapped in the quiet of a city that holds its breath. Richard sits uneasy, but you're still the dust, a soft blanket, the world dreaming of change. The night is a soft whisper, wrapping you in its quiet, urging your eyes to drift closed. Your breath is a gentle tide, but the echoes of history still call, pulling you back to a time when the English throne was wrested from one king to another in a haze of betrayal. You're no longer marching with the rebels of 1381, nor on the hill at Poitiers, nor in the gloom of Berkeley Castle, nor the snowy marches of Scotland, nor Runnymede grass, nor London's dusty streets, nor the village burned by war, nor the forest where an arrow flew, nor the abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 1399, and you linger in the shadowed halls of Pontefract Castle, your hands dusty from sweeping stone floors. You're a servant, your back bent from years of labor, your heart heavy with whispers of a king dethroned. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when Henry IV seized a throne that felt cursed, and Richard II faded into shadow. Lie back, let the world blur, and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of polished wood and treachery. You move through the castle's great hall, the broom in your hands sweeping dust into clouds that catch the light of flickering torches. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of polished oak and the faint, sharp tang of wine spilled hours ago. It's autumn, and the stone walls hold a chill that seeps through your patched tunic, making your fingers ache as you grip the broom's worn handle. Outside, the wind moans, rattling the shutters, a sound like the castle itself grieving. King Richard II, the boy who faced the peasants' revolt, is no longer king, Henry Bolingbroke. Now Henry IV has taken the throne, his claim backed by barons weary of Richard's rule. The throne, that restless seat you've heard of since childhood, feels like a hollow thing today, its weight pressing on this quiet hall. The hall is nearly empty, save for a few lords murmuring in a corner, their voices low, their goblets clinking softly. You sweep closer, the broom's bristles hissing against the stone, and catch their words talk of Richard locked away in this very castle, his crown stripped, his fate uncertain. You've seen him once, his face pale, his eyes distant as he was led through the courtyard. The throne has broken him, you think, as it broke so many before. You remember the tales, the turnip given in an abbey, the arrow in the forest. The village burned, the schemes in London, the ink at Runnymede, the prayer in a chapel, the march through snow, the guard in a cell, the prince's armor, the pitchforks of revolt. The throne weaves these moments, and you, a servant, are a thread in its story. A lord, his robe heavy with velvet, spills wine as he gestures, the red splashing across the floor like blood. You pause, broom in hand, and he laughs, waving you over. "Clean it quick, or they'll say I'm plotting again," he jests, and you smile, though the words unsettle you. You mop the spill, the cloth damp in your hands, the wine scent sharp in your nose. The lord's jest lingers, a reminder of the whispers. Henry's claim is shaky, his crown taken not given. You think of the monk from the abbey fussing over his wrong calendar. If he were here, he'd probably say the stars cursed Richard's fall or some such whimsy. The thought is a small warmth, like the torchlight flickering on the walls. You move to a side chamber, the air cooler smelling of dust and old tapestries. A young page, barely older than your nephew, darts past, carrying a tray of bread. He trips a loaf, tumbling to the floor, and you catch it before it rolls into the shadows. "Clumsier than a new king," you say softly, handing it back, and he grins, his face flushed. The moment is a spark in the castle's gloom, but the weight of Richard's fate lingers. You've heard the servants whisper he's to be starved or worse in his cell. You've never seen it, but you imagine the stone, the dark, the silence. You think of the guard in Berkeley Castle whispering to a fallen king, the farmer with his pitchfork, the camp follower binding wounds. Small acts you realize hold fast in a world of crowns and betrayals. You pause by a window, the glass warped, the world outside blurred by rain. The air smells of wet stone, and you hear the soft patter of drops, a steady rhythm against the castle's walls. Henry IV was crowned days ago, his coronation a grand affair, but here in Pontefract the throne feels like a ghost. You wonder if Richard still dreams of it, or if he's given up his spirit as worn as the broom in your hands. A cat slinks past, its eyes glinting, and you laugh softly as it steals a crumb from the page's dropped bread. A thief with better luck than Richard, you mutter, and the thought lightens your heart, though only for a moment. Historians, centuries later, still debate Richard's end. Was he murdered in Pontefract, starved or slain, as chronicles like those of Adam of Usk suggest? Or did he waste away broken by despair, as others claim? Some even whisper he escaped a shadow living in exile. You sweeping the hall, the wine stain still damp on your cloth, don't know the truth. You know only the dust under your broom, the Lord's hushed voices, the hope that this new king brings peace. The throne is a fire consuming those who touch it, and you're just a servant, your life one of brooms and shadows. The night deepens, the torches burning low their light, a faint glow on the oak beams. You finish your work, the broom leaning against the wall, and step into the courtyard, the rain cool on your face. The castle is quiet, save for the wind's low moan and the distant clink of a guard's armor. You think of the turnip in the abbey, the apple in the mud, the prayer in the chapel, the spear in the snow, the whisper in the cell, the horse's stolen hat, the pitchforks in London. The throne binds these moments, its fire burning through time. You're just a servant, your world one of dust and labor, but you've felt the throne's shadow, seen its cost in a king's faded eyes. As you lie down tonight, the straw beneath you rustles a sound as familiar as the rain's patter. The night is vast, the castle's chill fading, and you think of the spilled wine, the page's dropped bread, the cat's stolen crumb. Small moments in a world of usurped crowns. Sleep pulls at you, gentle as the rain, and you drift the throne story, fading into a dream. Henry IV sits uneasy, but you're still the broom at rest, the world holding its breath. The throne burns on its shadow long, but for now you rest wrapped in the quiet of a castle that guards its secrets. The night is a gentle cradle, rocking you softly toward sleep. Its silence a warm hand easing your mind. Your breath is slow, a quiet tide, but the whispers of history still linger, pulling you back to a time when the English throne rested on the shoulders of a child. You're no longer in the shadowed halls of Pontefract Castle, where a king faded into darkness, nor marching with rebels, nor on the hill at Poitiers, nor in Berkeley's gloom, nor Scotland's snows, nor Runnymede grass, nor London's dusty streets, nor the village burned by war, nor the forest where an arrow flew, nor the abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 1422, and you kneel in a dim church in London, the air thick with incense and prayer. You're a monk, your hands worn from copying manuscripts, your heart heavy with the weight of a boy king too young to rule. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when Henry VI whispered prayers for a throne he barely understood, and England held its breath. Lie back, let the world blur, and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of wax and sanctity. You kneel on the stone floor, its cold biting through your robes, the chill a quiet companion in the church's hush. The air is heavy with the scent of incense, its smoky sweetness curling around you, mingling with the musty tang of old parchment stacked in the corner. It's autumn, and the light through the stained glass windows is weak, casting fractured colors, red, blue, gold, across the pews. King Henry V is dead, His victories in France a fading echo, and his son Henry VI is king at just 9 months old. You've seen him a babe carried in his mother's arms, his tiny hands grasping at nothing. The throne, that restless seat you've known since childhood, feels like a cradle now, too vast for the child who claims it. The church is quiet, save for the creak of wooden pews and the soft rustle of your robes as you rise to light a candle. Its flame trembles a small star in the gloom, and you smell the wax warm and rich as it drips onto the altar. A few worshippers sit scattered, merchants, widows, a boy fidgeting with a straw hat. You hear a sneeze loud in the silence and turn to see the boy, his face red with embarrassment. "God's not deaf, lad," you whisper, smiling, and the widow beside him chuckles, her shawl slipping. The moment is a spark warming the church's chill. You think of the monk from that abbey fussing over his wrong calendar, the one you've heard tales of since you were a novice. If he were here, he'd probably say the stars misaligned for a baby king or some such whimsy. You move to the lectern, your fingers tracing the worn edges of a prayer book, its leather soft from years of use. You've written prayers for Henry, words of strength for a king who cannot yet speak. The nobles rule in his name, his uncles, his mother whispering of wars in France, of a throne that spans seas. You think of the tales that brought you here, the turnip given in an abbey, the arrow in the forest. The village burned, the schemes in London, the ink at Runnymede, the prayer in a chapel, the march through snow, the guard in a cell, the prince's armor, the pitchforks of revolt, the broom in Pontefract. The throne weaves these moments, and you, a monk, are a thread in its story, your quill scratching out hope for a child. A bell rings its chime, soft but clear, and you begin the prayer, your voice a low hum in the church's vaulted ceiling. The words speak of wisdom, of peace, but you wonder if they reach the boy king sleeping in a cradle far from here. A merchant drops a coin, its clink sharp on the stone, and you pause, smiling, as he scrambles to retrieve it. "God's richer than us all," he mutters, and the boy with the hat giggles. You think of the spilled wine in Pontefract, the hat eaten by a horse at Poitiers, the apple in Runnymede mud. Small moments, you realize, hold fast in a world of crowns and councils. You finish the prayer, the congregation murmuring amen, and step to the altar, the incense thick in your throat. Outside, the air is crisp smelling of wet leaves and distant smoke. You stand by the church door, the wood worn smooth under your hand, and watch the rain begin to fall, its patter a gentle rhythm. The city is restless, its streets buzzing with talk of regents and wars, but here in the church time feels still. You think of the guard in Berkeley, whispering to a fallen king, the farmer with his pitchfork, the camp follower binding wounds. The throne is a fire burning across generations, and you wonder if Henry VI will ever feel its weight, or if his advisors will carry it for him. A stray cat slinks past, its fur damp, and you laugh softly as it shakes itself, spraying water. "A king's bath," you murmur, and the thought lightens your heart. Historians centuries later still debate Henry VI's reign. Was he a weak king ruled by advisors who shaped his every move, as chronicles like those of John Wethamsteed suggest? Or was he a pious soul unfit for a throne that demanded strength, as others argue? You, standing in the church's quiet, don't know the truth. You know only the candles flicker, the prayer books wait, the hope that this child might bring peace. The throne is a fire consuming those who touch it, and you're just a monk, your life one of ink and prayer. The night deepens, the church's candles burning low, their light a faint glow on the stone walls. You sit the pew creaking under you and trace the grain of the wood, its texture a comfort. The rain falls harder, its sound a lullaby, and you think of the boy's sneeze, the merchant's dropped coin, the cat's wet fur. small moments in a world of baby kings. The throne waits its fire dim for now, but you're weary, your heart heavy with the day's prayers. Sleep tugs at you soft as the incense, and you drift the throne story fading into a dream. As you lie down tonight, the straw beneath you rustles a sound as familiar as the church's creak. The night is vast, the rain a gentle curtain, and you think of the turnip in the abbey, the apple in the mud, the spear in the snow, the whisper in the cell, the horse's stolen hat, the pitchforks in London, the broom in Pontefract. The throne burns on its shadow long, but for now you rest wrapped in the quiet of a church that holds its breath. Henry VI sleeps a king in a cradle, but you're still the prayer book closed the world dreaming of peace. The night is a gentle tide washing over you with its quiet urging your eyes to drift closed. Your breath is a soft rhythm, but the echoes of history still murmur, pulling you back to a time when the English throne was a battlefield of roses red and white. You're no longer in the dim church praying for a baby king, nor in the halls of Pontefract, nor marching with rebels, nor on the hill at Poitiers, nor in Berkeley's gloom, nor Scotland's snows, nor Runnymede grass, nor London's dusty streets, nor the village burned by war, nor the forest where an arrow flew, nor the abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 1455, and you hide in a hedgerow near St. Albans, the air sharp with the scent of earth and fear. You're a villager, your hands rough from tending fields, your heart heavy with the clash of York and Lancaster. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when the Wars of the Roses began and the throne bled anew. Lie back, let the world soften and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of blood and blossoms. You crouch in the hedgerow, the thorns pricking your hands, the damp earth soaking through your patched breeches. It's May, but the air is cool heavy with the scent of crushed grass and the faint metallic tang of blood already spilled. The town of St. Albans lies before you, its streets narrow, its houses shuttered against the battle unfolding. You fled your village a mile away when the armies came. York's white rose against Lancaster's red, fighting for King Henry VI's throne. You clutch a sack of grain, all you could carry, its weight a comfort against the chaos. The throne, that restless seat you've heard of since childhood, feels like a storm, now its winds tearing England apart. The battle's clamor fills the air, the clash of steel, the screams of men, the thud of hooves on cobblestones. You peer through the leaves, their rustle soft against your ears, and see knights in armor, their banners snapping in the breeze. The Yorkists, led by Richard, Duke of York, charge against the king's men loyal to Henry VI, the boy you prayed for in that church years ago. Now he's a man frail and pious, guided by advisers who wield his crown. You smell smoke faint but sharp from a fire in the town, and the earth beneath you trembles with the weight of charging horses. You think of the tales that brought you here, the turnip in the abbey, the arrow in the forest, the village burned, the schemes in London, the ink at Runnymede, the prayer in a chapel, the march through snow, the guard in a cell, the prince's armor, the pitchforks of revolt, the broom in Pontefract, the sneeze in the church. The throne weaves these moments, and you, a villager, are caught in its thorns. A knight's glove, torn and bloodied, falls near your hiding place, kicked free by a passing horse. You stare at it, its leather crumpled in the mud, and a boy nearby hiding with you giggles. Looks like the Duke lost his grip, he whispers, and you smile, though the jest feels fragile. You nudge the glove deeper into the hedge, its texture rough against your fingers, and wonder whose hand it warmed. The boy, no older than your son, picks a berry from the hedge, popping it into his mouth before spitting it out, grimacing. Sour as a king's promise, he mutters, and you chuckle softly, the sound swallowed by the battle's din. The moment is a spark, lightening the fear that grips you. You shift the thorns, catching your sleeve, and watch the battle turn. The Yorkists push forward, their swords flashing, and you hear shouts that the king's men are falling. Henry VI is in the town, they say, guarded but helpless, his throne slipping from his grasp. You think of the monk from the abbey fussing over his wrong calendar, the one whose tales you've carried through the years. If he were here, he'd probably say the stars foretold this clash or some such nonsense. The thought is a small comfort, a flicker in the dark. You clutch your sack tighter, the grain shifting inside, and wonder if your village will survive this war, if your children will know peace. A stray arrow lands in the hedge, its shaft quivering, and you flinch, your heart pounding. The boy beside you gasps, then laughs nervously. "Missed me by a king's mile," he says, and you smile, though the fear lingers. You think of the guard whispering in Berkeley, the farmer with his pitchfork, the camp follower binding wounds, the monk's prayer for a child king. Small acts, you realize, hold fast in a world of roses and swords. The battle slows, the Yorkists claiming victory, and you hear whispers that Henry has captured his throne, now a prisoner's seat. You stay hidden, the hedgerow a fragile shield, the air heavy with the scent of blood and earth. Historians centuries later still debate the Battle of St. Albans. Was it the true start of the Wars of the Roses, as some chronicles claim, or merely a spark in a longer feud? The Paston letters speak of York's ambition, but others argue Lancaster's weakness invited the fight. You crouching in the hedgerow don't know the truth. You know only the thorns in your hands, the glove in the mud, the hope that this war will spare your home. The throne is a fire burning those who touch it, and you're just a villager, your life one of fields and fear. The day fades, the sun sinking behind St. Albans rooftops, casting long shadows across the battlefield. You crawl from the hedgerow, the sack heavy on your shoulder, and start the walk back to your village, the air cool with the scent of rain. The battle's noise fades, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the distant low of a cow, perhaps a cousin to the one that ate a knight's banner. You think of the turnip in the abbey, the apple in the mud, the prayer in the chapel, the spear in the snow, the whisper in the cell, the horse's stolen hat, the pitchforks in London, the broom in Pontefract, the sneeze in the church. The throne binds these moments, its fire raging through time. You're just a villager, your world one of grain and thorns, but you've seen the throne's cost, felt its shadow in the blood-soaked mud. As you lie down tonight, the grass beneath you is damp, a soft cradle in the dark. The night is quiet, save for the wind's low sigh, and you think of the boy's sour berry, the knight's lost glove. Small moments in a world of warring roses. Sleep pulls at you gentle as the rain, and you drift the throne story fading into a dream. The throne burns on its shadow long, but for now you rest wrapped in the quiet of a village that holds its breath. Henry VI is captive, but you're still the sack at your side, the world dreaming of peace. The night is a soft cradle rocking you gently toward sleep, its silence a whisper easing your mind. Your breath is slow, a quiet tide, but the echoes of history still linger, pulling you back to a time when the English throne was a prize won and lost in blood. You're no longer in the hedgerow near St. Albans watching roses clash, nor in the dim church praying for a baby king, nor in Pontefract's halls, nor marching with rebels, nor on Poitiers' hill, nor in Berkeley's gloom, nor Scotland's snows, nor Runnymede grass, nor London's dusty streets, nor the village burned by war, nor the forest where an arrow flew, nor the abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 1471, and you stand in a muddy camp near Barnet, the air thick with the scent of smoke and steel. You're a squire, your hands calloused from polishing armor, your heart heavy with the kingmaker's betrayal. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when Warwick shifted from York to Lancaster, and the throne trembled anew. Lie back, let the world blur, and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of damp wool and ambition. You stand by a campfire, its flames licking the night, casting flickering shadows on the canvas tents around you. The air is damp heavy with the scent of wet wool and the sharp acrid tang of smoke from burning logs. It's April and the ground is slick with mud clinging to your boots as you polish a knight's sword, its blade catching the fire's glow. You serve a lord under Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick, the kingmaker, whose name is spoken with awe and fear. He's turned from York's white rose to Lancaster's red, backing Henry VI's return against Edward IV's crown. The throne, that restless seat you've heard of since childhood, feels like a chessboard, now its pieces moved by Warwick's hand. The camp hums with life, the jangle of armor, the low mutter of soldiers, the creak of a cart stuck in the mud. You smell the faint musk of horses tethered nearby, their breath clouding in the chill. You think of the tales that brought you here, the turnip in the abbey, the arrow in the forest, the village burned, the schemes in London, the ink at Runnymede, the prayer in a chapel, the march through snow, the guard in a cell, the prince's armor, the pitchforks of revolt, the broom in Pontefract, the sneeze in the church, the glove in the hedgerow. The throne weaves these moments, and you, a squire, are a thread in its story, your hands busy with steel, your heart caught in the kingmaker's game. A soldier nearby strums a lute, its notes sour and off-key, and you laugh as he curses, snapping a string. Music fit for a traitor's ear, he grumbles, and you smile, the fire's warmth a small comfort. The moment is a spark in the camp's tension, but Warwick's betrayal weighs heavy. You've seen him, his face stern, his cloak heavy with rain, as he rallied men for Lancaster. You wonder what drives him, honor or hunger for power. A boy fetching water trips over a tent peg, spilling his bucket, and you chuckle, helping him up. Clumsier than a king's crown, you say, and he grins, his face smudged with mud. You think of the monk from the abbey, fussing over his wrong calendar. If he were here, he'd probably say the stars shifted with Warwick or some such whimsy. The battle looms set for dawn at Barnet, and you move through the camp carrying the sword to your lord. The air smells of damp earth and the faint metallic tang of armor polished too long. You hear whispers. Warwick's men are uneasy, their loyalty torn between roses. You think of the villager in the hedgerow clutching grain, the monk praying for a child king, the servant sweeping Pontefract's halls. Small acts you realize hold fast in a world of shifting allegiances. You pass a tent where a soldier carves a wooden rose, its petals crude, and you wonder if it's red or white. He offers it to you, saying, "For luck, lad." You take it, its edges rough in your hand, and nod, though luck feels scarce tonight. The fire crackles its smoke, stinging your eyes, and you sit the sword at your side, its weight a reminder of the fight to come. You think of the throne, how it drove the Black Prince to glory, the rebels to London, the guard to whisper in a cell. Warwick's choice has turned the tide, but you wonder if the throne will break him as it broke so many before. A horse snorts, shaking its mane, and you laugh softly as a soldier tosses it an apple only for it to roll into the mud. Even horses reject our offerings, he mutters, and you smile, thinking of the apple in Runnymede, the glove in the hedgerow, the turnip in the abbey. The throne binds these moments, its fire burning through the night. Historians, centuries later, still debate Warwick's motives. Was he driven by principle, believing Lancaster's cause, just as some chronicles suggest? Or was it ambition, a bid to control the throne through Henry VI, as others argue? The Paston letters hint at his pride, but his letters to France speak of loyalty. You, warming your hands by the fire, don't know the truth. You know only the mud on your boots, the sword's weight, the hope that dawn brings victory, not death. The throne is a fire consuming those who touch it, and you're just a squire, your life one of steel and service. The night deepens the camp, settling into a restless quiet, the fire's glow fading to embers. You lie on the damp ground, the wooden rose in your pocket, its edges pressing against your side. The air is cool, smelling of smoke and earth, and you hear the distant neigh of a horse, the soft patter of rain beginning to fall. You think of the turnip in the abbey, the apple in the mud, the prayer in the chapel, the spear in the snow, the whisper in the cell, the horse's stolen hat, the pitchforks in London, the broom in Pontefract, the sneeze in the church, the glove in the hedgerow. The throne burns on its shadow long, but you're weary, your heart heavy with the battle's weight. Sleep tugs at you, gentle as the rain, and you drift the throne's story, fading into a dream. As you close your eyes, the camp's noises fade, replaced by the rhythm of your breath. The night is vast, the mud a soft cradle, and you think of the sour loot, the spilled water, the wooden rose. Small moments in a world of warring roses. The throne waits its fire restless, but for now you rest wrapped in the quiet of a camp that holds its breath. Warwick's choice will shape the dawn, but you're still the sword at your side, the world dreaming of peace. The night is a soft veil draping you in its quiet, urging your eyes to drift closed. Your breath is a gentle rhythm, but the whispers of history still linger, pulling you back to a time when the English throne was cloaked in mystery and shadow. You're no longer in the muddy camp near Barnet polishing a sword for the kingmaker, nor in the hedgerow at St. Albans, nor the dim church praying for a baby king, nor Pontefract's halls, nor marching with rebels, nor on Poitiers' hill, nor in Berkeley's gloom, nor Scotland's snows, nor Runnymede grass, nor London's dusty streets, nor the village burned by war, nor the forest where an arrow flew, nor the abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 1483, and you sweep the cold floors of the Tower of London, your broom heavy in your hands. You're a servant, your back bent from years of labor, your heart heavy with whispers of two princes who vanished. Lie back, let the world blur and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of mold and secrets. You move through the tower's corridors, the broom's bristles hissing against the stone, stirring dust that catches the flicker of torchlight. The air is damp, heavy with the scent of mold and the faint, sour tang of river water seeping through the walls. It's summer, but the tower feels like a tomb, its chill clinging to your patched tunic, making your fingers ache as you grip the broom. The city outside hums with unease, whispering of King Edward IV's death and his brother Richard, now Richard III, claiming the throne. But the talk is of the princes Edward V and his brother Richard, boys locked in these walls, their fate a mystery. The throne, that restless seat you've known since childhood, feels like a dark riddle, now its shadow cast over these silent stones. The corridor is quiet save for the echo of your footsteps and the soft drip of water somewhere in the dark. You hear the distant clank of a guard's armor, a sound that makes your heart tighten. You've seen the princes once playing in the tower's garden, their laughter bright but fleeting. Now their rooms are empty, their voice is gone, and you wonder if they still live. You think of the tales that brought you here, the turnip in the abbey, the arrow in the forest, the village burned, the schemes in London, the ink at Runnymede, the prayer in a chapel, the march through snow, the guard in a cell, the prince's armor, the pitchforks of revolt, the broom in Pontefract, the sneeze in the church, the glove in the hedgerow, the lute in the camp. The throne weaves these moments, and you, a servant, are a thread in its story, your broom sweeping away the dust of kings. A guard, his face shadowed, pauses near you, his boots scuffing the stone. He tells a ghost story, his voice low about the princes haunting these halls. Halfway through he startles at his own words, dropping his dagger, and you laugh softly as it clatters. Scared of your own tale, you murmur, and he grins sheepish. The moment is a spark in the tower's gloom, but the mystery lingers. You sweep on the broom's rhythm steady and find a child's toy, a wooden horse, chipped and forgotten under a stair. You pick it up, its wood smooth in your hand, and wonder if it was Edward's or Richard's. The thought stings, and you tuck it into your pocket, a small act in a place of secrets. You move to a window, its bars cold under your fingers, and look out at the Thames, its waters glinting under the moon. The air smells of river mud and distant smoke, and you hear the soft lap of waves against the tower's walls. The city whispers, "Richard III is blamed, they say, for the prince's fate." You've seen him, his face stern, his shoulders crooked, moving through these halls like a man carrying a curse. You think of the monk from the abbey fussing over his wrong calendar. If he were here, he'd probably say the stars hid the prince's fate or some such whimsy. You smile the thought, a small warmth, but the toy horse weighs heavy in your pocket, a reminder of boys who may never grow old. A rat skitters past, its claws scratching the stone, and you laugh softly, thinking of the rat in Berkeley Castle, bold as a king. Better luck than some princes, you mutter, and the sound of your voice feels strange in the quiet. You think of the guard whispering in Berkeley, the farmer with his pitchfork, the squire with his wooden rose, the monk's prayer for a child king. Small acts, you realize, hold fast in a world of missing boys. The throne is a fire burning those who touch it, and you wonder if Richard III feels its heat or if he's the flame himself. Historians centuries later still debate the prince's fate. Was Richard III guilty, ordering their murder to secure his crown, as Tudor chronicles claim? Or were they spirited away, as some argue their death's a convenient lie? The bones found in the tower centuries later fuel the mystery with no clear answer. You, sweeping the cold floors, don't know the truth. You know only the toy horse, the guard's dropped dagger, the hope that the boys are safe somewhere. The throne consumes its shadow long, and you're just a servant, your life one of brooms and dust. The night deepens, the torches burning low, their light a faint glow on the stone walls. You finish your work, the broom leaning against a corner, and step into the courtyard, the air cool with the scent of rain. The tower is quiet, save for the river's murmur and the distant hoot of an owl. You think of the turnip in the abbey, the apple in the mud, the prayer in the chapel, the spear in the snow, the whisper in the cell, the horse's stolen hat, the pitchforks in London, the broom in Pontefract, the sneeze in the church, the glove in the hedgerow, the lute in the camp. The throne binds these moments, its fire burning through time. You're just a servant, your world one of stone and shadows, but you felt the throne's weight carried a prince's toy. As you lie down tonight, the straw beneath you rustles a sound as familiar as the river's flow. The night is vast, the tower's chill fading, and you think of the guard's ghost story, the toy horse, the rat's bold dash. Small moments in a world of vanished princes. Sleep pulls at you gentle as the river's current, and you drift the throne's story, fading into a dream. Richard III sits uneasy, but you're still the broom at rest, the world holding its breath. The throne burns on its shadow dark, but for now you rest wrapped in the quiet of a tower that guards its secrets. The night is a quiet harbor, its stillness wrapping you gently, urging your eyes to drift closed. Your breath is a soft tide, but the whispers of history still beckon, pulling you back to a time when the English throne was won in blood and mud. You're no longer sweeping the tower's cold floors, guarding the mystery of vanished princes, nor in the camp at Barnet, nor the hedgerow at St. Albans, nor the church praying for a baby king, nor Pontefract's halls, nor marching with rebels, nor on Poitiers' hill, nor in Berkeley's gloom, nor Scotland's snows, nor Runnymede grass, nor London's dusty streets, nor the village burned by war, nor the forest where an arrow flew, nor the abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 1485, and you stand in a makeshift forge near Bosworth Field, the air thick with the scent of charcoal and steel. You're a blacksmith, your hands scarred from the hammer, your heart heavy with the clash of York and Tudor. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when Richard III faced Henry Tudor and the throne changed hands forever. Lie back, let the world fade, and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of sweat and iron. You stand by the forge, the fire's heat warming your face, its glow casting shadows on the canvas tent behind you. The air is heavy with the acrid scent of burning charcoal and the sharp metallic tang of heated steel. It's August and the night is warm, the ground beneath your boots soft with dew-soaked grass. You hammer a dented breastplate, the clang of metal a steady rhythm as soldiers prepare for the Battle of Bosworth Field. Richard III, the last Yorkist king, faces Henry Tudor, a Lancastrian claimant backed by exiles and hope. The throne, that restless seat you've heard of since childhood, feels like a storm brewing its lightning ready to strike this muddy field. The camp is alive with noise. The jangle of armor, the creak of wagons, the low mutter of men sharpening swords. You smell the sweat of horses tethered nearby, their snorts mingling with the forge's smoke. You think of the tales that brought you here, the turnip in the abbey, the arrow in the forest, the village burned, the schemes in London, the ink at Runnymede, the prayer in a chapel, the march through snow, the guard in a cell, the prince's armor, the pitchforks of revolt, the broom in Pontefract, the sneeze in the church, the glove in the hedgerow, the lute in the camp, the toy horse in the tower. The throne weaves these moments, and you, a blacksmith, are a thread in its story, your hammer shaping steel for a king's last stand. A soldier, his face smudged with dirt, brings you a bent sword, tossing it onto your anvil with a grin. "Fix it quick, or I'll fight with my spoon," he jests, and you chuckle, the fire's heat a comfort against the night's tension. You work the blade sparks flying like stars and notice a boy nearby, a page struggling to tie a banner to a pole. The cloth slips flapping in his face and you laugh softly. "A flag more stubborn than a king," you mutter, and he grins, his cheeks flushed. The moment is a spark lightening the weight of the battle to come. You think of the monk from the abbey fussing over his wrong calendar. If he were here, he'd probably say the stars chose this field for the throne's fate or some such whimsy. You finish the sword, its edge gleaming, and hand it back to the soldier, his nod a silent thanks. The air smells of cooling metal and damp earth, and you hear the distant neigh of a horse, perhaps a cousin to the one that ate a hat at Poitiers. You think of Richard III, his crooked frame, his fierce eyes riding through the camp earlier, his crown a heavy burden. You've heard the whispers, his nephews the princes gone from the tower, their fate blamed on him. You wonder if he fights for the throne to prove his right or to silence the ghosts. You think of the servant in the tower holding a toy horse, the squire with his wooden rose, the villager in the hedgerow. Small acts you realize hold fast in a world of warring roses. The battle begins at dawn, the clash of steel echoing across the field, and you watch from the camp the forge's fire dying to embers. You see Richard charge his armor, glinting, aiming for Henry Tudor, a desperate bid to end the fight. The air fills with the screams of men, the thud of hooves, the scent of blood sharp and coppery. A stray arrow lands near your forge, its shaft quivering, and you flinch, your heart pounding. A soldier laughs, picking it up. Aimed worse than a king's promise, he says, and you smile, though the fear lingers. You think of the guard in Berkeley, the farmer with his pitchfork, the monk's prayer. The throne is a fire burning through this field, and you wonder who will claim its ashes. Historians centuries later still debate Bosworth's turning point. Was it Richard's bold charge undone by betrayal, as Tudor accounts claim? Or was Henry's strategy backed by Stanley's shifting loyalty the key, as others argue? Chronicles like those of Polydore Virgil praise Henry's rise, but Yorkist tales mourn Richard's fall. You standing by the cooling forge don't know the truth. You know only the sword, you mended the arrow in the mud, the hope that this battle ends the Roses' war. The throne consumes its shadow long, and you're just a blacksmith, your life one of hammer and steel. The day fades, the battle won by Henry Tudor, now Henry VII, the field strewn with the fallen. You sit by the forge, the embers cold, the air heavy with the scent of blood and rain. You think of the turnip in the abbey, the apple in the mud, the prayer in the chapel, the spear in the snow, the whisper in the cell, the horse's stolen hat, the pitchforks in London, the broom in Pontefract, the sneeze in the church, the glove in the hedgerow, the lute in the camp, the toy horse in the tower. The throne binds these moments, its fire dimming for now. You're just a blacksmith, your world one of iron and sweat, but you felt the throne's weight, seen its cost in a king's last charge. As you lie down tonight, the grass beneath you is damp, a soft cradle in the dark. The night is quiet, save for the wind's low sigh, and you think of the soldier's spoon, just the page's flapping banner, the stray arrow. Small moments in a world of fallen kings. Sleep pulls at you gentle as the rain, and you drift the throne's story, fading into a dream. Henry VII wears the crown, but you're still the hammer at rest, the world holding its breath. The throne waits its fire banked, but for now you rest wrapped in the quiet of a camp that dreams of peace. The night is a gentle cloak, wrapping you in its quiet, urging your eyes to drift closed. Your breath is a soft rhythm, but the whispers of history still call, pulling you back to a time when the English throne sent its fire across borders. You're no longer in the forge near Bosworth Field, hammering steel for a new king, nor sweeping the tower's cold floors, nor in the camp at Barnet, nor the hedgerow at St. Albans, nor the church praying for a baby king, nor Pontefract's halls, nor marching with rebels, nor on Poitiers' hill, nor in Berkeley's gloom, nor Scotland's snows, nor Runnymede grass, nor London's dusty streets, nor the village burned by war, nor the forest where an arrow flew, nor the abbey where a boy was crowned. Now it's 1513, and you stand on a wind-swept hill near the Scottish border, the air sharp with the scent of heather and fear. You're a border farmer, your hands rough from the plough, your heart heavy with the clash at Flodden Field. Tonight I'll take you to a moment when James IV of Scotland faced Henry VIII's army and the throne's shadow stretched north. Lie back, let the world blur, and drift with me into this dream of a history that smells of blood and moorland. You stand on the hill, the wind tugging at your patched cloak, its wool damp with mist. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of heather and the faint metallic tang of blood carried from the battlefield below. It's September, and the moor stretches before you, its grasses swaying under a gray sky. You clutch a staff, its wood worn smooth by your calloused hands, watching the English army under the Earl of Surrey face James the South Scots at Flodden. You fled your farm a mile away when the armies came, their banners bright against the gloom. The throne, that restless seat you've heard of since childhood, feels like a distant fire, now its heat driving England's King Henry VIII to prove his crown against Scotland's. The battle's roar fills the air, the clash of pikes, the screams of men, the thud of hooves on the sodden ground. You hear the wail of bagpipes, sharp and mournful, as the Scots charge, their axes gleaming. You smell smoke from a distant fire, perhaps a village caught in the war's path, and the earth beneath you is soft, muddy from days of rain. You think of the tales that brought you here, the turnip in the abbey, the arrow in the forest, the village burned, the schemes in London, the ink at Runnymede, the prayer in a chapel, the march through snow, the guard in a cell, the prince's armor, the pitchforks of revolt, the broom in Pontefract, the sneeze in the church, the glove in the hedgerow, the lute in the camp, the toy horse in the tower, the sword at Bosworth. The throne weaves these moments, and you, a farmer, are a thread in its story, your staff a frail shield against the chaos. A stray goat escaped from your farm wanders onto the hill, nibbling a tuft of grass. You laugh softly as it headbutts a rock, then scampers off its bell, jangling. Braver than some soldiers, you mutter, and the sound of your voice feels small against the battle's din. The moment is a spark, lightening the fear that grips you. You think of the monk from the abbey fussing over his wrong calendar. If he were here, he'd probably say the stars foretold Flodden's blood or some such whimsy. You adjust your cloak, the wind sharp against your face, and watch the battle turn, the English lines holding firm, their longbows raining death on the Scots. A wounded man stumbles up the hill, his arm gashed, and you offer him water from your flask. God save us, he whispers, his eyes distant, and you nod, though you wonder if any god hears over this carnage. The battle rages, the Scots falling in droves, and you hear shouts that James the Fourth himself is struck, his crown no match for English steel. The air grows heavier, the scent of blood and mud overwhelming, and you clutch your staff tighter, its weight a comfort. You think of the blacksmith at Bosworth hammering a sword, the servant in the tower holding a toy horse, the squire with his wooden rose. Small acts, you realize, hold fast in a world of warring kings. A bird, startled by the noise, drops a feather near your feet, and you pick it up, its softness, a contrast to the battle's hardness. You tuck it into your cloak, a small keepsake, and wonder if your farm will stand when this is over. The sun dips low, casting a red glow over the field, the battle slowing as the Scots break. You see bodies strewn across the moor, their armor glinting dully, and hear the moans of the wounded. A soldier limping past drops a torn banner, its colors faded, and you laugh softly as it catches on a thorn bush. A flag fit for a lost cause, you murmur, and the thought is a small comfort. You think of the turnip in the abbey, the apple in the mud, the prayer in the chapel, the spear in the snow, the whisper in the cell, the horse's stolen hat, the pitchforks in London, the broom in Pontefract, the sneeze in the church, the glove in the hedgerow, the lute in the camp, the toy horse in the tower, the sword at Bosworth. The throne binds these moments, its fire burning across borders. Historians centuries later still debate Flodden's impact. Was it Henry VIII's triumph securing England's north, as Tudor chronicles claim? Or was it Scotland's tragedy, a king's death weakening their crown, as others argue? The Chronicle of Edward Hall praises Surrey's strategy, but Scottish accounts mourn James IV's fall. You, standing on the hill, don't know the truth. You know only the feather in your cloak, the wounded man's whisper, the hope that your farm survives. The throne is a fire consuming those who challenge it, and you're just a farmer, your life one of plow and fear. The night falls, the battlefield quieting the air, heavy with the scent of blood and rain. You start the walk back to your farm, the staff steady in your hand, the moor stretching dark and silent. You think of the turnip in the abbey, the apple in the mud, The prayer in the chapel, the spear in the snow, the whisper in the cell, the horse's stolen hat, the pitchforks in London, the broom in Pontefract, the sneeze in the church, the glove in the hedgerow, the lute in the camp, the toy horse in the tower, the sword at Bosworth. The throne is yours, its shadow long, but you're weary, your heart heavy with the battle's cost. Sleep pulls at you, gentle as the mist, and you drift the throne story fading into a dream. As you lie down tonight, the grass beneath you is damp, a soft cradle in the dark. The night is vast, the winds sigh a lullaby, and you think of the goat's headbutt, the dropped banner, the wounded man's whisper. Small moments in a world of fallen kings. The throne waits its fire, dimmed for now, but you're still wrapped in the quiet of a farm that holds its breath. Henry VIII triumphs, but you rest the staff at your side, the world dreaming of peace.